What's up? This is Ethan from Great American Ghost, and you're watching Heavy NY.
Heavy New York!
What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the Kingsland in Brooklyn, and we got Ethan of Great American Ghost. Thank you for your time today, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. So your new album, Power Through Terror, which came out this year. Do you just want to talk about like how the making of this record was, the recording, mixing, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, let's go. It was weird. It was a weird situation. Writing it was really, really difficult. We almost broke up during like the writing of the record. There was a couple things that happened, and like extremely long short story, like slightly shorter. Our guitar player Nico, who is like the other songwriter with me, he and I were like kind of at odds. Like we just like weren't really speaking and stuff. And he actually almost joined another like really big metal band that I won't name. So he had an offer to do that, and then we were like writing this record, but we were like estranged. Like we weren't speaking, but we were still sending music back and forth to each other, but like not talking, which was super duper weird. And anytime we did talk, it was pretty negative. So we did that for like months. And it's weird when you're like in a band that's looking for a new label, because at that same time we were looking for a new label. You're like in this very precarious situation where like you could just break up and no one would care. You know what I mean? Like no one would know. You don't owe them any money or owe anyone anything. So like you could just break up. So we did that for a long time, and then it kind of all just fell into place. Like he turned down that offer, and then we signed with E1, and then we went into the studio with Will like the couple days after. And
Will Putney, right?
Yeah. And we hadn't spoken in 3 months, and Will didn't know that. Will is also our manager, and I hadn't told Will any of it. So like when Nico and I saw each other at the studio for the first time, it was like, hey man, it had been like months. So then we went to the studio, and we had 18 songs, and Will and I and Nico and Joey, because we didn't have a drummer at the time, we just sat there and went through 18 songs, like, and kind of as we did it, we kind of like became friends again, kind of, you know, like in a weird storybook kind of way, I guess. And we just like kind of figured it out as we went. And you know, Will has this like special way of just being like, that sucks, and then just erasing like a whole song. And like when you get broken down like that, like all the bullshit that you have between another member and you is gone, because it's like, you know, we're just doing this thing. This thing is what matters. It doesn't matter that we argued about whatever, like, you know, this many years ago or months ago. So yeah, and then we made the record with Will, and it was wild. It's an experience. It's like you work till like 2 a.m, and then Will's back at the studio by 8, and you're back and you're working again. So it was like all day, every day, and it was demanding, but it was awesome. I wouldn't want to do it any other way now. I mean, now we've pretty much become certain with how we're gonna do the rest of them. So
Awesome.
it was tight.
Yeah, I'd imagine, like, you know, because there was a lot of, you know, touch and go, and there was a lot of, you know, triumphing through tragedy between the last album and this, that almost that like that had to influence the sound and the songwriting, right?
Yeah, it did. It was funny because I think it kind of helped, because you know, the way that we write songs is Nico writes instrumentals, and then he sends them to me, and then I mess around with the order of the song, like the structure. But Nico's gotten really good at it. So sometimes he'll send me a song and it'll be totally done, or he'll send me a song and I'll mess around with it. But because we're kind of at odds, it was like I just didn't care. I would just be like, this part sucks, get rid of it. And he'd be like, great. And then like that would be it. And he would get rid of it. And so we like did this kind of like it's really cold, methodical, mechanical way of like writing these songs where like our feelings weren't really in play at all. And then this, like I said earlier, like the same thing with Will. Like Will doesn't give a shit if you think that your song is great. Like if he thinks it's crap, he's going to tell you it's crap. Yeah. So, which is exactly why he is who he is. So it's like the whole record is very like stripped down to only the stuff that we thought was good, because there was no like, oh, well, you know, I know you really like that part. It was like none of that mattered. It was just very much like cut and dry.
Yeah, every band I've interviewed, whether it was Thy Art Is Murder or even Fit for an Autopsy, which he's heavily involved with, it, like, you know, they say working with him is like really almost enhances the sound of the band. I'd imagine that you and Nico, like, you probably learned a lot about who you are as artists and musicians collaborating with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. I mean, Thy Art would know very well because we are always there when the art is there. They're on like our cycle, similar cycles. So like you record almost always with the same bands. Like we are always in the studio with Kubicon, always, because we're on the same cycle as them. So yeah, the art knows very well. It's weird. He joins your band, and then you go through this process with him all the way through, and then he kind of just like leaves your band. So it is a very interesting thing. He definitely pushes like the sound, and he definitely pushes you to do things that you didn't think you could do. Like we wanted to cover a song, and I won't say what the song is because I can't yet, but we wanted to cover the song, and a huge hint is that it's about the band that we're covering. It's about them breaking up. That's what the song is about. And so we were like, we want to do this song. And Will was like, yeah, you should definitely do that song if you can sing it. Because he was like, you're not going to scream the song. He was like, so you have to sing it. And I was like, okay. And I'd never really, I sang, but I have sung, but I've never sung on a Great American Ghost record. And he was like, so if you can sing it, you can do it. So then we went to go record the first song we did, which was Altar of Snakes, which is like one of our singles from this record. And there's like a chorus. And I was like, I think I want to sing on this chorus. And he's like, all right, sing it. And I had to sing this song. And he was like, okay, you can sing. Now you can do that cover. Like, he wouldn't let, there's no, like, and that actually speaks to the fact that there's no bullshit in that studio. Like, he's not auto-tuning that stuff. It's like, if you can do it, you can do it. If you can't, then we're not going to do it. Yeah. So he does push you to do things that you would never normally do.
Yeah, it's like the heavy metal version of Whiplash.
He is. And he's not going to watch this, but I love talking like nice about him because I text him all the time and just tell him like not nice stuff. So it's like the interview portion of me and then the me fucking with him portion is totally two different things. But yeah,
that's awesome.
Yes.
Now, as a vocalist, like, do you need to hear music in order to come up with lyrics, or could maybe like a lyrical concept ever determine like the composition of the music?
It's both. It's both. Like I have like certain things that I want to say. So sometimes the song is built to say it, if that makes sense. Like we have a song on the new record called Scorched Earth, and there's a part in it where I say Scorched Earth. That is the only line I had for the song, and I was like, we have to stop, and I have to say this part because I know it's going to be cool. So the song's composition like led to this big stop and then me saying that. So like that's a situation where I affect the writing of the songs. Alternatively, we had 18 songs. I would say that a lot of them were like musically, like that was what we focused on first, and then I wrote all the lyrics. Mm-hmm. So like a lot of the songs in the record, we didn't take lyrics into effect until the song was written. Mm-hmm. But I do think that like with us and with Will helping and recording and producing, we're always thinking that. It's like a fluid thing. It's like you're thinking about all of it all the time. You have to. Because if you write personally for me, if you write like a song with a bunch of like noodling and all this other bullshit, and then there's nowhere for vocals, you're going to be like, well, we need vocals because our band has vocals. You know what I mean? It's like you can't write a noodle fest and then expect to write a bunch of vocals over it. So
not animals as leaders.
Right, no, exactly. And then good for them. They're animals as leaders, and that's dope, but we're not. So it's like we do keep in mind, like, just remember, like, vocals do have to go here. Because Nico's a great guitar player, so he could just rip a whole song instrumentally, I'm sure, but realistically, nobody wants to listen to that.
Of course. Now, do you like to leave the lyrics open to interpretation? Because, like, listening to, Rat King and Rivers of Blood and Prison of Hate and stuff like that, like, I mean, just the aggression behind it, like, I almost wanted to put myself in your shoes or what was going on in that vocal booth. So, like, do you, like, leave it open to interpretation, or do you want the listener to sort of feel or see things from your point of view?
I would say that the way I write lyrics is pretty open for interpretation in the way that, like, I don't spell things out. Like, and there's nothing wrong with bands that do. I'm just not one of those bands. I'm just not that person. So, like, my favorite lyricists are, like, Wes from American Nightmare, or, like, Kevin Baker from The Hope Conspiracy, or, all these vocalists and these lyricists that they don't write. They're not telling you exactly what they're saying, but you can pretty much, like, gather it. I mean, Wes and Kevin are very different, but also, to me, it's like they're very conceptual. So I like conceptual. I like keeping it, like vivid in the way of like that I'm like painting a picture, kind of like with words. I'm trying to paint a picture, I'm not an artist or anything, but I'm trying. So I do like to have people interpret it their own way because I feel like that's the best way for people to relate to something. If I just spoon feed you that I'm writing, this song is about this, then you can't apply it to your life. And then what's the point, Because when I used to listen to songs, I would apply them to my life. Like I'd be like, oh, this is cool for me because it makes me think of this thing and it's cathartic in this way. So for me, if I'm like, if we're being really real, it's like I wrote Prison of Hate about the fact that I believe that the human consciousness is a shared hallucination and that nothing is really happening. We're all just agreeing that it's happening and it's a conceptual like lie, essentially. Right, so I just told you that, but like if someone listened to it and didn't see this interview, they would be like, it's about being alone, or it's about being this, or and then that's all fine. Like I like all that.
Yeah, well, when it comes to reality and what Prison of Hate is about, it's like some things are governed by common sense, while others are fixed upon the society as a whole to the point where it becomes real and accepted.
Right. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean that's kind of what I'm saying. Like it's as a society, like we basically are just. So your consciousness as a human being is basically just a hallucination. Like your mind is just hallucinating this thing, and we all agree that it's what we call like reality, right?
That's quotes from Jonathan Davis. Why do I have a conscience? All it does is fuck with me.
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Or I mean, any Meshuggah song, because they're literally all about reality. So like, yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, but I do like that people can take from it what they want. I mean, I hope that they do. I mean, Rat King for me was about something really specific. It was about writing the record. It was about how scared I was to write the record because I was like, this record is the most important thing I'm ever going to do, and what if I fuck it up? Mm-hmm. But that thought, if you break it down to like the very minimum thought, is like, what if I fuck this up, is something that everyone feels all the time. So like if you can apply that to your life, then like I'm very, very happy for that because that's what I like about music. So yeah.
That's awesome. When it comes to playing live, is there maybe a similar energy that you put into your live presences when you're like in the vocal booth or when you're in the studio, or with the crowd there, it just completely makes a different experience?
I mean, I think it's definitely a different experience, but there has to be some like thread, There has to be like a thread through. When I record vocals, Will always gives me shit. There is no vocal booth in the studio that we record in. It's literally like it's a mic, and then Will is just sitting right here. And so you do it, and so he just sees me being crazy or weird, and I do this thing when like when I'm really like on, if I feel like if we can get through like 2 songs in one night, or like we can do like a bunch of shit, I'll be like, I do this thing where I like pop my foot. I don't know why, but it's like pent up energy. It's like because I'm screaming, like there's no 2 ways around it. I'm yelling. And I'm yelling about something that I feel passionately about. And typically it's a song I literally just wrote. Like if we're writing, like the way we do our records is like we do pre-pro for X amount of days. And then when we're done doing pre-pro, I start doing vocals like right then. And then Nico's recording recording guitar in a different room, and we're all doing it at the same time. So there's no time for me to have written a bunch of songs. Like I will write Rivers of Blood all the way through, and then I'll be like, I'm done. And then Will and I will go over it, and he'll be like, I like these lyrics. These are cool. And then we'll be like, you want to do them? And I'll be like, yeah. And then we'll do them right then. So if I was thinking about X and Y while I was writing the song, I literally just stand up and scream about it right there. So it's like there is a lot of aggression in it and a lot of like feeling. So it also applies when I play live. Like I'm singing songs that I wrote that I meant. When I sing a song that from our last record about like the things I've gone through or whatever, or something from the new record, which is like something that I feel very passionately about, I still feel passionately about it. So, I'm thinking about those lyrics as I yell them. Yeah. So, and also, yeah, I mean, the crowd helps. Yeah.
Definitely. So you try to really capture a moment when it comes to making music, right? So like I've always had this discussion because, sometimes you're working on a song for a couple of days, even a couple of weeks, God knows how many weeks Tool was working on their latest album, but like I
don't even want to know.
But like so do you find like the longer you work on something, the harder it is to maintain that moment and maintain that energy? Yeah,
because the longer you work on something, the more things you find wrong with it. There's no love in that. And that's not to say that we don't do it, because we do. Altar of Snakes was the first song we wrote for the record. And we wrote all lyrics. I wrote all lyrics. That was the only song we had when we went into the studio. And Nico and I fucking hated it. Hated it. It was one of the things we fought about. We just hated it. And the song, the version that him and I wrote is the version on the record. It's not changed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you write this thing and then you're happy with it, and then you will find every reason to think it sucks. So if you don't like capture that moment, for us especially, I mean, I can't speak to everyone else, but for us, it's like, you know, we finished this song yesterday, and then I write the lyrics for it, and then we record it, and if we think it's a banger that night, then it's like sick, and we move on, because that feeling you feel when you first write it is probably the one that is most applicable to how someone will feel when they hear it, because they didn't write it. Yeah. You know, it's like our least favorite songs are always people's favorite songs. It never fails. It's like, you know, people are always like, yo, why don't you play X, Y? I'm like, because I hate that fucking song. That's why. And they're like, well, dude, it's your best one. And I'm like, fuck. You know, I'm like, I don't want to play that song at all. But yeah, you got to capture the moment, because it's like, if you think too hard about it, it's not going to be authentic. It's not going to be real. So that's kind of what we try for.
There you go. And the final question I wanted to ask you is the most difficult question, even though I think you, in a way, kind of answered it already working with Will. But how do you know when a song is done?
When I'm done with it. No, when I don't know. I think that you don't have to put so much thought in it. You know, that's kind of my best interpretation of it. It's like we would write it, and then the music, I don't know, the music, when it just I just feel like it's just such like a feeling thing. It's like, this feels done, you know. You can it's right here, like you can tell. And when it's missing something, you can tell. So it's almost like the same, that feeling, you know. And then like if it's done instrumentally, then I can do it vocally, and then we play it back, and if I feel content with how it is, then it's done.
Mm-hmm. There was actually one more question I actually wanted to ask about the songwriting, because, you know, you mentioned what you were all going through when you were writing it. So when you're now playing this material live, is it almost kind of like, is there maybe a similar emotion when you execute it live as you did when you were writing it? Or now that the record's out, that the record's finished, you approach the song a little bit differently with a different frame of mind?
I'd say both. I mean, I think that when we play it, it was cathartic to finish them because of what we had been through. And now it's cathartic to play them because we did it. You know what I mean? So it's like it's equally cathartic, but I think it's just different. The feeling is different. Also, I'm just like, my mind is always like moving a million miles a minute. So I'm thinking about if we're playing the right set list, and if this is the right song for this tour, or if this is the right song for this night, you know, like that's what I'm thinking about as well. But it is always like nice to, you know, I don't know if anybody knows this, or if like, you know, like when you're in a band, especially when you're the vocalist, or if you're maybe I'm just speaking for me, like I'm doing the song and I'm thinking about it, but I'm also thinking about other things while I'm performing. Like I'm thinking about this next step, or the next song that's coming, or, you know, like how I think the song will go over. So I think that when you play live, it is a different like sense, because as you're writing a song in the studio, it is very much like, this is the only thing that matters. You're in this like bubble.
You focus on the now.
Yeah, it's like this bubble of like, I'm writing this song and it needs to be done, and it needs to be exactly how it needs to be, because we're going to press it and then I can't change it ever again. When you're playing live, it's like there's 40,000 things going on. Yeah. So, you know, it's definitely different, but it is equally cathartic in its own way. So, yeah.
Awesome. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It was great to be able to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
Looking forward to you all decimating through the week tonight.
Hope so.
Is there just anything else you would like to promote for Great American Ghost? This will be uploaded by midnight, so any tours planned for 2030, do not plug them here.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely do that. Just listen to Power Through Terror. I would just appreciate it if anybody were to give it a listen. Like, if you want to follow us on Spotify, obviously we're Great American Ghost on Spotify. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's Gag Boston. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's Gag Boston. Like our Facebook, I don't really care about Facebook, but all that good stuff. Honestly, the most important thing to me is that like this record that we made is heard by as many human beings as humanly possible. So, you know, if we are lucky enough to have you just listen to the record once, then yeah, I'm more than happy. So, and let us know what you think about it. Twitter at us and tell us that it sucks or whatever you want to tell us. I don't really care.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ethan.
Thank
Everybody,
you for having me.
Ethan of Great American Ghost, Power Through Terror, out now on E1. Pick that up if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.